don't worry about other people.
Hmm.
I used to get bogged down with that in the beginning of my company, because I would see other people running startups that were getting more attention, more publicity. And I'd be like, they're not doing anything. Like, I'm here slaving away 22 hours a week, 22 hours a day, all this stuff. And I'm like, no one even cares about me. And, they're out partying on the weekends, and, they're barely doing anything, and they're getting published in this media blog. And then I really realized behind the scenes, I was like, it's all a facade. Now it's like, 5 years after that, it's like, look what it came to. My 8 years, 9 years of no one paying attention to me is now paying off.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses. Coming up on 9 figures on one of them, so exciting. And I've also the CEO and founder of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And if you ever need help with yours, just go to Miller IP Law and or go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time with us to chat. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Nick, and I'm worried I'm going to slaughter the last name. So I'm calling him Nick C, even because the name is much longer. He can tell me how to pronounce it when he joins in just a second. But Nick has been in the music industry for about 9 years, got involved originally as a freshman in high school, lost his dad, was looking to kind of rent a venue for a concert to raise some money for cancer awareness, which is where he lost his dad from. First year it failed, but learned a lot of things from it. And then the second year came back, was much more successful. And by the end of high school, they were doing something like 75 concerts a year. Then went off to college, went off to school, college, university, saw that there were still some common problems within the industry, within the music industry, decided that there was a better way that he could solve some of those. So came up with kind of a software solution, started out in 2017, and then has been building it ever since and growing it. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Nick.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me, man.
So, and I punted because I usually try and tackle last names, but it was one that scared me off. So how do you actually pronounce the last name?
So it's a lot easier than it looks. It's Cianfaglione.
All right, that does sound easier than what it looks like. So.
Yes.
All right. Well, now with that out of the way, so take us back a little bit in time. So in high school, kind of a freshman in high school, loss of the dad, kind of tell us how that kind of, first of all, condolences for the loss of your dad, and then tell us how to, kind of set you on a trajectory to where you're at today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, so pretty much after that, I got deeply involved in Relay for Life, which was a huge charity event that, was predominant in Connecticut. And it definitely is predominant in a lot of other places, but it was very predominant in Connecticut. And my freshman year, we were absolutely getting, losing to this other team. And I was like, guys, we haven't, I was doing this since, probably middle school and stuff like that. And I was like, guys, we've never lost. Like, we've always been the highest donors. I was like, what are we doing here? And this other team was, having like wine nights and stuff. And I was like, guys, we can't just host a bake sale. We can't host a car wash. We can't be those normal people. And I was like, there's an old music venue in our town. Let's throw a party. And that was how it all started. First year I tried to throw a party, ended up the same night as my high school had prom, and about 10 of my friends showed up.
That's probably not the best timing, just as hence why I laugh. But if you're going to throw a party, competing with prom is probably a hard way to start out.
Yeah. That was definitely not the best way to start out. Looking back, maybe we should have even marketed it as an anti-prom and, really gone all in.
Maybe that's where you should have gone. And everybody that did want to go to a prom, you could have had a great party.
Yeah, exactly. But, went back to school, obviously being a freshman, you're obviously the underdog already. And, everyone kind of looked at me like, oh, look at this kid who completely failed. And I was like, I'm going to show all these kids. And, ended up coming back the next year to the same exact music venue, kind of, got my shit together, started learning, little things about, how concerts work, promoters, the marketing side of things, setting up Instagram pages, reaching outside of just my town, all that stuff. And I ended up, the big selling point was when EDM was on the come up, and I bought about 100 pounds of neon paint powder. And we had neon paint powder, we had fire extinguishers with neon paint powder in it, just the whole 9 yards.
Mm.
And ended up hosting this massive glow party and ended up selling out in like a week. And I remember sitting there just at the end of the night, and I was like, dude, this was sick. And at that point, I was like, there's no way I'm working, a normal job. At that point, when you're 15, 16, everyone's looking at, the normal high school jobs, the working at McDonald's, working at my town, there was a West Marine, which is a boat store. So like, everyone worked there, working at the local coffee shop or Starbucks or Dunkin'. And I was like, I'm going to host concerts for a living. And that's literally what I did at 16. I opened up my first LLC and I just started, hosting concerts all across Connecticut. And then by the time I went to school, I was like, I need to get into something else. And I got deeply ingrained in music marketing, and because I had all those connections from the concerts. And after that was when I started realizing how screwed up the music industry was. And that was
before we dive into that, so just kind of going on high school. So you did this all 4 years you're in high school, is that right?
Yes. Yep. All 4 years through high school.
So now was it all for charity? Was, not a right or wrong answer. Was it all for charity and hey, we're going to keep doing it? Did you expand out and you actually made an income, made a business, and it was profitable, or kind of how did that portion go?
So the first 4 concerts were charity. And then after that, I was like, I want to do this for a job. And I was going to non-for-profit it. And I was like, it was too complicated being a 16-year-old to go through that route. And I was like, look, I'm opening up an LLC. I came up with, I named the company Northeastern Entertainment Solutions because I was like, look, that is such a legit name. No one's going to question that it's a 16-year-old running this thing. And, it's not like all the classic names like Super Lit Parties. And I was like, Northeastern Entertainment Solutions. Like I had like gold lettering and all this stuff. I was like, no one's even going to notice. And yeah, that was how it started. That's what the actual for-profit company was. And every year, a part of that, I would run, one concert. So there's definitely more, maybe 6 or 7. I would run as, a charity event. But most of them were for profit. And yeah, how I, paid my way, through high school, got my first car with it, got, everything just through hosting concerts.
So that first of all, kudos to you. I wish I was an entrepreneur in high school, but never to the point that I did a full-on business. I always thought it was interesting. I always loved it. And I did it later when I got into college, especially in graduate school. But kudos to you, first of all, get knocked down as a freshman, get back up and actually turn this around and make it profitable, I think is awesome. And that's always what I'd love my kids to kind of have, that entrepreneur bug and want to do that. But so you build the business, you do it for 4 years, you're able to get a car, save up some money for college, have some spending money for dates or whatnot, and you go off to college. So did you kind of just, once you hit your senior year, shut it down? Did you keep doing it? Somebody buy you out, or kind of how did that go? And now that you went off to college?
So it started going downhill the end of my senior year. As I started getting, focused on a lot of other things. And also, concerts really have a 4-year run. And then, you got to change out and get, new things together. And I also learned, kind of my second lesson in business. First one was timing is everything, as I learned with prom. Second lesson I learned is if you chase money, the money won't come. And that was the reason the concert company really started declining for me, because it started turning away from, as I got older and, actually started caring about revenue. That's when it started turning from, hey, let's, just host the biggest concert ever, and whatever we make. And then it started turning into like, okay, how much revenue can we make out of this concert? And that was for me when ticket sales started declining and when things started declining. And I was like, okay, I need to totally go back to the drawing board and figure out what I'm doing. And when I built my second company, I didn't care about the money. And that was when the marketing company grew so quickly for me, because I just chased building the thing with the biggest value. And at the early days of the concert company, I was the same way. I just chased the biggest way to make the best concert ever, not care about how much money I made. And so, yeah, that's why I started getting out of the concerts at the end. Was it just started going downhill, and I realized, I was at my time. I was like, all right, I did this for 4 years. Now it's time to bounce into something else. Because I think, kind of going off that quickly, I think that's the third lesson of entrepreneurship, which is you got to know when to walk away. And I knew at that point, I was like, look, now it's time to walk away.
No, and I would caveat it with one thing. I don't think chasing money is anything wrong with it, but it shouldn't be your main pursuit, right? Every
Yeah.
business, in the end of the day, is still you still need to make a paycheck. You still have to live off of it. And if
Mhm.
you're in the business, but to your point, if all you're doing is chasing money, meaning, hey, what's the way that I can make the most money? Then you start to lose the passion, it loses the fun and the excitement, and then you're not going to perform as well. I mean, that's why, as an entrepreneur, there's people, and I'm probably a little bit in the same camp. The once you build a business to a degree, when it starts to be more of a full-on business, it loses some of the excitement because you're not building things, you're not figuring it out, you're not doing things. And so I think that kind of to add on to that, finding the things that you're passionate about and be able to continue to find a way now, things that you're excited and you're passionate about, figure out how to make money off of it, but not focus on
Mhm.
that money aspect to the point that now that what you're chasing is the money, not the fun and the excitement.
Yeah.
So now you go off to college and you say, okay, I've done some successful venues. I'm going to get an education. You're going to, you go and do that for a problem with school, or you see that problem as you continue with school. Now, how did you kind of decide, to get into the next thing of tackling those problems, software solution, doing those type of things? Did you come right out of school? Did you drop out of school? Did you come right out of school? Did you dive into that directly, or did you kind of go work for corporate or work for the man, so to speak, and do that for a period of time? Or kind of how did you make that transition out of school to now what you're doing?
Yeah, so I've actually joined the long list of entrepreneurs that have dropped out to pursue their dreams.
Mm,
Um, and we'll see which list of those I end up in, the list that dropped out and then went back, or the list that dropped out and made it happen. One is much shorter than the other. But yeah, so I got into it basically when I was running the marketing company. I wanted to come up with a tech solution for the marketing company that basically was a data analytics tool. And I
mm,
had all these other ideas like cool programs and stuff for the music industry, but I'm not a tech guy. And so
mm,
I hired a development firm to kind of build this tool. About halfway in, we had the tool idea, and then we had the kind of the byproducts of it. And we realized that the main tool was not going to be feasible. We were not able to collect the data we needed.
mm,
And but the byproduct started getting me curious.
mm,
And I started looking into that more. And that was when Artist Public started to form, because I was like, this doesn't exist. And really what it was I had to take a step back. I basically looked at all my ideas of cool websites for the music industry. And I was like, they'd be decent as standalone products. But if we built them all into one website,
mm,
and it was one website that offered all these individual services, now that would be $1 million idea.
mm,
And so that's what I started working on, was bringing all these things, because they all were basically the same themes. A tech website to help a music artist do this one thing.
mm,
And I was like, okay, but if we just combine them to do it all,
mm.
well, then that's the company. It kind of goes back to like what, people get shut down a lot on Shark Tank, where they're like, you have a product, not a business.
Mm.
Um,
By the
and
way, I love Shark Tank, so thanks for the
yeah,
reference. I think I've watched every episode, so I was there since the beginning. But
yeah.
anyway, go not to interrupt your journey with the
Exactly.
Shark Tank reference.
And that's a big point, is like you have a product, not a business. And there's a lot of those things I had were products or
Mm,
digital services, not a business. When I put them all together, I was like, okay, now we have a business.
mm,
Like Amazon is not just a marketplace, it's a web hosting company. It's everything. Oh,
mm.
I just lost slides. There we go.
All
Uh,
right, we'll call that a nice strobing effect or coloring
yeah,
effect.
yeah. I'm still figuring out the lighting switches in the new office.
So now you say, okay, I've got now a product as opposed to a business, and I don't know that there's anything wrong with a product, but you have to understand that that's what you're at. You're not a full-on business. You
Exactly.
have to be a product, and sometimes you can sell what Snuggie. They were a product company, but they sold a lot of Snuggies and they made a lot of money. But they were still one. They were a product business, right? In the sense that they were a product because once everybody had their Snuggie or was going to buy it, they went on. I don't know where they're at now. Maybe they're still in business, but they certainly were not the same as what they were before.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I think that finding out what a business is, a full-on business instead of a product, definitely makes sense. So you figure that out. You continue to build. So I think you started in 2017, built in 2018 and 19, and then you've really launched, last year, right? And then that's really where you guys
Yeah.
have got traction. And so as you've launched, as you've kind of now got your business in place, how has that gone so far? You're in new offices, you just moved in, but kind of how has that build gone? Has it been a hockey stick straight to the top and you're already $1 million company, still figuring things out, starting to get clients on, or tell us a little bit about that?
So it's kind of been for anyone who could see my face, it's been a ziggy zaggy. You know, I think I like to compare it as like people, there's like, they always say like, there's like, success, what people think it looks like, and then, what it actually is. But I think it's deeper than that. It's like, you have like a flat line of like what the public sees. And then you're working your butt off behind here. And then the public starts to see it go up, but then you're still going through hell behind the scenes. And that's kind of the point that we're at right now. We had between January and May of 2020 was when it was really behind the scenes. It was just starting to get publicized. People were just starting to talk about it. We had a lucky go with an investor off the bat that really, positioned us strong. And then over the past 3 months, now it's been public eye shooting up. And then we're still, in that startup phase. It's literally just been a year since launch. We launched our alpha in January. We launched our beta in May. So it hasn't even been a year since we launched our beta. And so it's been a rocky road, mainly just because of how quickly we launched. And a lot of times with marketplaces, with tech companies, you have to launch quickly. A lot of competition enters very quickly. It's very easy for companies to, there's no IP really in tech on the lawyer side. There's really not a lot of IP in tech, and it's very easy for people to dupe your platforms. And so, unlike a lot of other companies where you can kind of like take your time to launch, promote, bootstrap, with tech companies and, especially tech marketplaces, there is no time to bootstrap. It's like you got to bootstrap it for maybe 5 months, and then you have to get a lot of capital very quickly, and you just have to grow it very rapidly. And that's kind of the point where we're at right now, where we're in, capital growing, publicity, and then we're trying to catch the platform up to that capital, to the publicity, and really get it cranking. Because you really have to build a 10-year company in 6 months.
And that's that, but that's the kind of the fun of it for me, in the sense that you have to figure it out, and there's, I think that it's one where, if it was any other way, it wouldn't be as exciting and fun. But I always like, it's always, 10 years, overnight success, 10 years in the making, in the sense that it always feels like everybody's like, oh, this was, you just got lucky and you got overnight success. And it's like, no, if you're to really look back at your journey, you started in the music industry as a freshman in high school. A lot of the experience you built and you gained, and you continued to build on top of that. You went to school, you continued to build on top of that. And then you got the software platform, and then you had to figure out how to make a business as a hopeful business, not as a product. And so it's all of that is a, kind of, but you only get to see that last 6 months or whatever it is till it takes off and it starts to do well. So, but that's a fun place to be.
Yeah,
Well,
it definitely is.
So now, as we catch up, that kind of brings us up to today, and a little bit of looking into the future, as you kind of now are in that trajectory of building it, getting as many users, getting, kind of building the platform and getting that, threshold amount of people that make it now sustainable. As you go through that, I always transition. I always have 2 questions I ask towards the end of the podcast. So we'll jump to those a bit now. So the first question I always ask is, so along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Worst business decision I ever made was actually when I was probably been a couple recently, but those are I feel like definitely confidential.
Don't break any confidentiality.
Yeah,
I don't want to get you sued.
But the one I know I can say is when I was a junior in high school. It was the first time I was like, this was when it started getting crazy for me, and things started getting stressful with concerts, because I tried to expand. I was like, look, we host concerts from March through April, and then we host them, or March through the beginning of May, and then we host them September through the first week of December. I was like, let's add a summer series. I was like, no one has anything to do with the summer. Let's launch a summer series. And I lost the most money I ever lost, probably in the history of that time, in that summer. And because I never went into the summer before, I never hosted a concert in the summer before, I never knew what the market was.
Mm.
And I just went in with literally signed deals. I just went hard. I was like, we're going to sign a show every other week. We're going to host a show every other week. And at the end of the year, we're going to host a mini festival.
Mm.
And everything bombed. And I remember just sitting in, the green room at the end of the festival with the venue owner just breaking down. I was like, I don't know what to do. I just completely bombed. And, it was really just that decision of like, I infiltrated a market that I wasn't ready for. I didn't have any experience in it. I didn't have any research on it. I didn't do anything prior experience. I was like, well, the concerts work in April, so they must work in August. I was wrong.
Hey, that is I like that I think there's a story to learn from that, in the sense that sometimes you get complacent, or you think you know more than you do, right? You get into industries and it's a vertical, or maybe it's building onto it, and you just get a sense of complacency or comfort that, oh, I can do this, I know what I'm doing, without really diving in doing the research. And yet sometimes you get lucky and you're right and you can do it, but other times, if you don't do the research, you don't know what you're doing, it can certainly have those harsh repercussions. So
Yeah.
I like the idea of doing a bit of homework, knowing your market, knowing what you're doing, and be able to understand it so that it can increase the odds of success. Doesn't guarantee the success, but it definitely increases the odds. So as we jump now to the second question, which is, so now if you were you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Don't worry about other people.
Hmm.
I used to get bogged down with that in the beginning of my company, because I would see other people running startups that were getting more attention, more publicity. And I'd be like, they're not doing anything. Like, I'm here slaving away 22 hours a week, 22 hours a day, all this stuff. And I'm like, no one even cares about me. And, they're out partying on the weekends, and, they're barely doing anything, and they're getting published in this media blog.
Mm.
And then I really realized behind the scenes, I was like, it's all a facade.
Mm.
Now it's like, 5 years after that, it's like, look what it came to. My 8 years, 9 years of no one paying attention to me is now paying off. And, their 9 years of faking it is catching up to them. And I think that can always be a lesson, is like, don't just focus on your success, your goals, and it'll get there. And then I think the last piece of that, going off of the goals, is it's very easy to look at running a company as this big thing.
Mm.
And it's scary, it's daunting. You look at everything you have to do, and even to what we're doing right now, or like I look at like our goals for the year, and I'm like, this is huge. Like, this is huge. It's not 100x, it's not 1000x. I think we're close to like 10,000x we have to grow this year.
Mm.
And that sounds huge until you break it down to each month. You're like, okay, I just have to be 10% better than last month. I have to be 50% better than last month. And that then breaks down to, okay, today I just have to be 2% better than I was yesterday, 1%, half a percent. And if you're able to break it down to a month, if you're able to take a year goal, 4 or 5 yearly goals, break them down into micro goals, then break them down into daily goals, you're going to hit those goals. But if you look at it as a yearly goal, you're never going to do it.
No, and I like both of those pieces. I even like, maybe to tag on to the first piece of advice, there's always, it's good to know what your competition is doing, in the sense that if you're trying to be or can maintain a competitive edge, understand where the market's at. Not a problem to understand what the competition's doing, but on the other hand, there's a difference between comparing yourself, especially saying, "Oh, I'm the I'm this position. Why is this person doing better?" Because one is, to your point, there's a facade. There's a lot of times we see now social media, we see the highlight reels, and you don't ever see what's going on underneath. Sometimes they are putting in a ton of time and effort, and it just looks like they're not doing much. And other times they're not doing much. And then you're saying, you kind of almost get that jealousy factor of, why am I putting all this time and effort? Why am I not more successful than them when they're not putting in? And either of them can be detrimental, because one, they may be outworking you. Maybe they're working 100 hours and they just make it look easy, or you don't see the 100 hours behind the scene, or they're not working very much and they're not building something that's sustainable. But because you're trying to compare yourself to them, you start to go down routes or avenues that aren't beneficial to you, that don't build your business, so they don't grow. So I think that is definitely a good piece of advice. Well, Well, as we wrap up, so if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an investor, they want to be an employee, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out and find out more?
Yeah, so if you want to learn about the platform, it's artistrepublic with a K.com, Artist Republic on everything on socials. If you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can probably, my name's probably in the description of this, so you can copy my name. You find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message, just tell me why, like what's up. I get a lot of random people connecting with me on a daily basis. Yeah, no, I mean, connect with me, whatever. I'm always down to talk. I love just networking with people. That's just what I do. You just want to hop on a 15-minute call. You're like, hey, Nick, I heard your podcast and I just want to talk to you about startups. That's fine. Just shoot me a message and be straight up. That's what I'm here for. So yeah, no, that's pretty much it. You want to find anything on the platform, artistpublic.com or artistpublic on any socials, me, Nick Cianfaglione on LinkedIn.
All right, and that's just a reminder, it's Artist Republic with a K instead of a C to make sure people get that straight. But I think that's a great offer. I definitely encourage people to check out the platform, become a subscriber, be a supporter, and also reach out to Nick for any questions you might have. So now as we wrap up, thank you again, Nick, for coming on the podcast. For all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you want to come on the podcast and share it, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com and apply to be on the show if you have a journey to tell. Also, as a listener, make sure to click subscribe in any of your podcast players so you know when all the awesome episodes come out, and leave us a review so everybody else can find us as well and check out the awesome podcast as well. Last but not least, if you ever need help with your intellectual property, patents, trademarks, or business or anything else, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us. We're always happy to chat. Thank you again, Nick. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you. It was awesome.